Have you ever been right in the middle of telling a great story and your brain just stalls? We've all been there. Today, we're going to tackle that exact problem head on. We're going to dig into a super common habit and find some simple, powerful ways to clean up our speech and sound way more confident. So you ready? Let's jump in. Yeah, this right here. Sound familiar? You're trying to explain something, maybe a key point in a story for class, and bam, you hit a wall. You're scrambling for the next word, and out comes an or it's totally universal. But what if I told you there's a really easy way to get a handle on it? So what we're really talking about here are filler words. You know, those little verbal habits that just kind of sneak into our sentences? And look, the first step to fixing any habit is just noticing you're doing it in the first place. So let's shine a big old spotlight on these things. To do that, we're going to borrow a really clever activity straight from the classroom. It's perfect for stuff like practicing story presentations. It's this simple, interactive game that makes you instantly aware of your filler words. And the best part? It's not about being critical. It's actually kind of fun. Okay, it's called the Raise Hands of Fillers game. Picture this. Someone gets up to speak. Maybe they're just talking about their favorite book. The very second, they use a filler word like or everybody else in the room just quietly raises a hand. See? No judgment, just instant visual feedback. It's a brilliant way to see just how often we use these words without even thinking about it. All right, so now that we have a cool way to spot them in the wild, let's get super clear on what they are. What exactly are these little words and sounds that we're trying to manage? Basically, filler words are just placeholders. You can think of them like verbal speed bumps we put down to fill the silence while our brain plays catch-up. They're basically a signal to whoever's listening that says, hey, I'm not done yet, just give me a second to get my thoughts together. And here are the usual suspects. You've got the classics, right? But then there are phrases like, or even just sounds like, We all have our favorites. Come on, which one is yours? Knowing your personal go-to is a huge part of this. Now listen up, because this part is really, really important. Using filler words does not make you a bad speaker. Not at all. There's actually a really fascinating reason why our brains do this. It's not a bug. It's a feature of how we think and talk at the same time. And there it is. That's the whole secret right there. We use them to buy ourselves a little time to think. Our mouths are moving, our brains are working, and when there's a tiny lag while we search for the next idea, a filler word jumps into the gap. So they actually serve a real purpose. Okay, so they have a purpose. Great. But that doesn't mean we can't trade them in for something a little more powerful. So how do we give our brain that same thinking time without leaning on and ah? Let's get into some real practical techniques. The single biggest, most effective thing you can do is just slow down. It's that simple. When you're talking a mile a minute, you're not giving your brain a chance to keep up. But look at the difference here. When you slow down, not only do you use fewer fillers, but you instantly sound more confident, more deliberate. You're swapping out a nervous for a powerful, thoughtful pause. And that pause, that silence, makes people lean in and listen. Slowing down is your number one tool, for sure. But to make it stick, you gotta build new habits, kind of like muscle memory for your mouth. And that means a little bit of dedicated practice. You're basically training yourself to be comfortable with that silence and to be intentional with your words. So, what does that practice actually look like? Well, good news. There are some super effective, really straightforward things you can do to build that fluency and confidence. Let's break a few down. First off, just practice talking when you're by yourself. Seriously, just talk about your day, explain something you learned, anything. It takes all the pressure off. Second, rehearse monologues. Pick a favorite story or summarize a movie you just saw and tell it out loud. This helps you get used to the natural flow of speaking. And third, try some role-playing for specific situations, like practicing for a class presentation. It really works. So let's tie this all together. Getting a handle on your speech isn't about being perfect. It's really just a 3-step process. First, you've got to have the awareness to notice your filler words. Second, you need to understand why you're using them. It's just to think. And third, you have to practice new habits, like slowing down and using pauses instead of fillers. All right, now I've got a challenge for you. The next time you're just chatting with a friend, pay attention. Do they use fillers? Maybe you could gently tell them about the hand-raising game. Because you know what?
The best way to get better at something is to teach it to someone else. It's the ultimate way to make all this knowledge really stick.